Good night, good night, good night, my YouTubers. Tonight, Boss Lady Live is lit with 6 what I consider to be top of their game, well-educated, a man's man. That's my experience. That's my personal experience with these men here. So tonight, our conversation is male versus a man. Now, do you become a man just by the fact that you have a penis? We don't think so. But that's my opinion. So we'll discuss that tonight, male versus man. Please like and share with your friends. Invite your friends to join, because this is a conversation. We're not dictating anything. You can ask questions, you can field your questions, you can make your voice heard. But tonight, we're going to have that discussion with this panel of, I would say well-appointed men, right? Males and men. Please like, share, subscribe to our page. It's www.youtube.com/The Totally Male. Boss Lady manages a male spa for the last 26 years, and we have a lot of conversation about this very topic. And so tonight we want to give you a glimpse into some of our conversations, and we'll give you the opportunity also to join us. So like and share. Join us. We'll be starting in a few minutes. It's now 8:03. We'll be starting at 8:05. Make sure you send the link, share, subscribe to our page. And then I'm going to introduce our guests tonight. So we're waiting a few more minutes for more persons to come on. Like and share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. It's www.youtube.com/The Totally Male. Subscribe to our page. Okay, it's 8:04. 1 more minute and we start the ball rolling. We don't want to waste any time because we have so much to talk about tonight on this program. Male versus man. What a topic. You know, a lot of grown males are walking around posing as man. But man, becoming a man, we believe is a rite of passage. A man has responsibilities, a boy doesn't. But a boy is a male. So you graduate from a baby, a male child, to a adult child, to adolescence, to a young teen, a young adult. Then we become a man. What does that mean? Can a woman, a single woman, grow a man, a male child, to become a man, and he becomes all that he can be? Or does he need a male mentor to teach him the things that he needs to learn to become a man? Can a woman teach a male child to become a man? These are some of the conversations that we'll be having today. Now, that's not to say that women don't have to do what they have to do. But we have to have that discussion because we need to find out, you know, the level of crime, the level of abuse, what's causing it. Is there any connection to homosexuality? You know, we need to have this discussion. Or do we just continue as we are, not having this conversation? I don't think so. We are Jamaicans. We want solutions and we want to live our best lives. So let's start now. So we start. I want to introduce first of all Dr. Leachcim Semaj, which is to my top, which is when you're looking at the screen, top right hand corner. Dr. Semaj is he's a transformation psychologist. Dr. Leachcim Semaj knew he had a special gift for sharing information when he won the Distinguished Teacher Award at Cornell University. With a unique ability to impact persons at all levels of education and competence, Dr. Semaj creates a participatory environment that keeps the audience fully engaged. People routinely remind him of what he said in a presentation years ago that impacted their lives. This is why he is noted among the leading motivational and keynote speakers, creative thinkers, and problem solvers in the Caribbean. This quantum transformation psychologist combines ancient wisdom with contemporary levity to bring fresh insight to old human problems. So that is I'd say he's my go-to. If my head hurts me, I go to him because he always has the right thing to say. He's so learned. So the next person up is Mr. Courtney Whyte, who is below Dr. Semaj, and he says in on the page on our intro or flyer, he says he's a motivator. Let me find. He's a motivator and a male mentor. So he is his personal mission statement. He's also by profession. He's a quality analyst, counselor, male mentor, and author. His personal mission statement, just do a little part of it. With God as my captain, I desire to successfully serve as a leader, being consistent in my actions while applying ethical principles to my life and everything I do. Now, ethics, as you know, it's sadly lacking in society today. So I want to hear from Courtney what he brings to the table. And next up, we have Jeremiah, who is at the bottom of our page. And Jeremiah's first tour of duty in the United States Foreign Service was as a consular officer in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and later in Santiago, Chile. In Istanbul, Islamabad, Pakistan, he served as a deputy information officer while serving in DC. Jeremiah held various positions, including special assistant in the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement, special assistant to the Undersecretary of Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs, and Strategic Planning Office of the Under-Secretary of Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. He later went to serve as Information Officer in the U.S. Mission in Dominican Republic, Embassy's Press Attaché. He went on to then serve as Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Juba, is that the right correction pronunciation? South Sudan, and he currently holds the position of he's now, where it is again, he'll tell us because he now has a brand new position where he is now. He just moved, so he's now the Deputy Chief of Mission for the U.S. Embassy in the Marshall Islands. And then we next have Hugh. You see who I bring in to, man? No, man. I can't pay for this, Hugh Reid is a chartered accountant by training and an executive in the financial security industry. He is a cancer survivor, and his greatest life accomplishment is his 2 adult sons. He is an active volunteer in Kiwanis, his church, and a number of professional bodies. His passion is financial education and empowerment. So that's Hugh, and he's in the middle. Everybody has their name up so you can identify them. Then we have Mr. Roberts and Danny. He kept it short and sweet, but we all know Danny, right? Because he's been around for a long time as in the what do you call it again, Danny?
Labor movement.
Right. Danny Roberts, senior lecturer and head of Hugh Shearer Labor Studies Institute, UWI Open Campus, and he's many other things. But he was very humble. Just kept it short and sweet. So next we have Garth Kitson, and Garth is the CEO. Let me find his bio. Okay, so Garth Kitson, MSc, BSc, Chemical Engineering, the founder and managing director of SIPS, and I'm drinking my SIPS today. SIPS group of companies. Mr. Kitson is a results-oriented professional with considerable success in directing and managing strategic business development and a proven ability to lead effectively. A philanthropist by nature, his energy is fueled by his passion to serve and make the lives of others more meaningful. His career has taken him to J. Neville Limited, where he held several senior and strategic management positions. He's a former general manager operations, Kingston Wharves Limited, and general manager Guardsman Alarms. A sports enthusiast, Mr. Kitson is a member of management of the Kingston College. You had to put in that, right, Garth? Kingston College track and field team. He's also instrumental in community development as he is the chairman of the Campbelltown Association past student, Kingston College. I could read on and on and on and on about all these wonderful men. However, we must start because we have a lot of information to give out tonight. So we'll start with you, Doc. Good night. Unmute your mic, please. Yes.
Yeah.
Good night, Doc.
Good night, my friend. How are you doing?
You get to lead this very, I don't even know what to call it. This wonderful group of men, not just males, men,
No, man,
fathers, leaders.
I'm honored to be, part of this group.
You're going again. I'm not hearing you.
I said I'm honored to be part of this group.
You keep on going in and out now. You keep on going in and out.
No, that sound away, that this in and out business and tell everybody publicly that anything you call on me and man, people start,
You're my go-to. You're my go-to, Doc. I can't hide. I can't hide and talk. I have to talk public.
No, I'm honored to be. Listen, it's good, but almost unfortunate that you as a woman have to be doing something like this. But it has to be done, this kind of discussion.
Absolutely.
To a large extent, the women's movement have tried to hijack defining what man and manhood is about. One of the most sickening term I hear is this thing called toxic masculinity, that we should apologize for being men. For years I've told, listen, I'm a masculinist. The same way a woman can proudly say she's a feminist because she sees the world from a specific point of view and with no apologies, you know. Um, I can share some specific experience with you in terms of how I came to this understanding, but it just bothers me. Most recently, when the gender studies department formally opened at Hugh, somebody hurriedly called me, said that when they looked at the program, there were 17 speakers and all women, not one man. Gender studies. Because gender has become the imperialistic arm of the women's movement. They just switch the word for a moment to gender. And I can give you a background story at UWI 30 odd years ago, how they actually almost crippled the country by doing that. Now, the concept of man and manhood, these are constructs, social constructs that evolve over time. And look, the basic rules and the roles they talk about procreation, protection, and provision. But then the one tells you, why protection, we can call God's man, you know. Provide my own job, you know. And procreation, the sperm bank, you know, boss. So, and there was an article about 10 years ago in Atlantic magazine said that men are technically obsolete. We can literally do without them. Save a few, you know, for breeding purposes, but then we can do it. So it's that kind of consciousness. And too many men have been sort of silent and allowed this kind of thing to go on, not understanding that there's a, just as a woman brings something unique and special to the universe.
Absolutely.
Man also does that. Now, briefly, the way I summarize it, you start off as a boy or a girl, just trying to figure out how the world works. Just, you know, really trying to figure it out. When you get to adolescence, boys become males, girls become female. Why? By then, you are defined by your external genitalia and your internal hormone secretions, and specific root now start to take place. The next stage of development is called man, but it is not automatic. The way you go from male to man, and I stand to be, I love for somebody to come to tell me no, is via this thing called work. If you're not working, you can't call yourself a man. Anybody who feed you, own you. If you're not feeding yourself, you're either a child, a pet, or a domesticated animal. So the first step is to work, that you can sustain yourself and at least hold up your half of the sky. No, don't confuse work with employment. You can just be employed, you know, but you're willing to work in that you can expend brain power or energy to solve a problem, provide a service, and you get paid for it and so on. Once you master work, you are now eligible for the next level of adult development. It's called intimacy. Work and then intimacy. If you look in the book of Genesis, you'll see that when God made man and clearly he set out some things for the man to do, first of all, you know, and literally the man had to, before he actually gave him access to a woman, he asked him, he had, first of all, he had to till the land and so on, physical work. And then the next question, he was supposed to name all the animals. That's intellectual work. Name all the animals. Then and only then did God provide him with a woman. So after you master work, you are now eligible for intimacy. Then work plus intimacy makes you eligible to become a parent, which is the highest function of human beings. Now, in our own culture, we see these things play out. Oftentimes, you know, if I've told, you know, women that if a male come into your life and them don't walk with anything, and vice versa, it's the woman. Now, it's historical. The woman's main role is to procreate. But no, her role is not just procreate, it's to be productive. So she can, not the idle rubbish. If she can't do nothing, she don't have no useful purpose, and all she has is her body. She's just a female. But a woman brings a certain competence and strength, and she has her own work. Somebody comes into your life and they don't walk with anything. Check them pocket. You will find knife and fork because they will come yam you out.
Hmm.
They have to come with something. And if you notice how it works now, look, if you said, we have an accountant here, can explain to you. When you tell people, so what if a half a man link up with a half a woman? Half times half. And everybody say, wow, no, half times half is quarter. You worse off than you was before. You as a man with a half a woman, you worse off than you was before. So me no want a half a woman in my life, right? And any woman will take with a half.
100% human beings.
Totally,
As close to 100. As close to 100 as possible.
Or it can be a work in progress. Now, again,
Right.
there are many dimensions we can. I've seen situations where a man will take up with a female and send her to school, and help her transform to become a woman.
Women do it too. Women do it too.
A lot of women say, I'm not different about it because them friend of all take him away now. After them clean him up in Hugh, clean him up and send him to school and all that. And then other woman come take him away. But women will do it, but are more reluctant to do it. A woman meet a male and will sponsor him, it's less likely. But men will meet and a lot of women. I mean, the man could be a taxi driver, Enough taxi drivers sponsor enough you people. Daniel shaking me knowingly. Right? So that's really the basic framework. I mean, I can talk all night. The framework. Male is identified by your external genitalia and your internal hormone secretions. If you're not working, if you're not,
so would you say then, Doc, that man is an action word?
It's an action word. It's a doing word. Men make commitments. No, you can't make commitments if you don't.
I posted that today, and I like that because I like consistency, and I like commitments, and I like you to mean what you say and say what you mean.
Male promise you, them promise, but man make commitment is a big different thing. And again, it's that notion that man take responsibility. Now, we can go through a whole heap of traits now that stem from this, but that first critical definition.
All right, so we'll go deeper into that later on.
Yeah.
Garth, you're up next.
Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Garth. Welcome.
You know what's interesting, Sandra, and I have to actually show respect to both Leachcim and Danny Roberts. I think I've met Hugh at the shop. I've passed him there, and Courtney, they went great, and Jeremiah. Why I have to start there is when you asked me to be a panelist on your program, Male versus Man, then I saw Leachcim and Danny. I asked myself the question. Back at Rainview, Danny was head of the labor movement. Pretty interesting negotiations then with himself and Professor Monroe. While studying, I used to listen to the Night Doctor. And then further on in life, Dr. Semaj and I worked on my master's program, my software. And then it occurred to me, these are guys who I looked up to most of my life, actually all my life. As a child, as a boy, I got UTech, got gas. And for you to ask me to sit on a panel with these esteemed gentlemen, I mean, even the gentleman in the army, I wasn't even a Boy Scout, much less a cadet. It speaks volume. And Leachcim said it. Maybe this whole matriculation from male to man is a function of having a strong, robust role model to look up to say, boy, I'm a man, I'm a man too. Because you have some people call themselves man too, have girls in a bungle and picnic all over the place. That don't make a man. So I did some research and I looked at the whole evolution, ecology, study of the interactions of human beings with its system. And we all have our roles. I'm the engineer, so I believe in process and rule of law.
Right.
The symbol of man and woman, it's different. One upside down and one right side up. You figure out which one upside down. But the reality is, in my mind, it's very clear. It's not a function of the genitalia. It's a function of the thinking and the experiences that you have garnered over the years. And whenever I speak to Sandra, whenever she keeps quiet, because she rarely keeps quiet, and she looks up to me, I feel like a man because she older than me, but still yet she listen up and she's like, "Why, Kito, you seem to have it," and for that, I'm pretty much interested to hear the other views as we move on, because once again, I'm about rule of law. It's either ones and zeros for me. Mathematically speaking, it's binary. The light either turn off or it turn on. There's no gray area right here. So, but if Semaj can convince me, I mean, I will not be. But the reality is, I can't wait to hear the accounting perspective of it. And Courtney, I'm looking forward to, because I know you did some studies.
Yes, man.
And the army man go war, man bust shot. So Sandra said I must try and be myself. So
Yes,
guys, I am the ones and zero man. It either turn on or it turn off. And on that note, Sandra, I hand it back to you. All right?
Okay, all right. So over to you now, Danny.
Well, the social scientists got see it a little more fluid, and that there are perhaps in betweens between the light on and the light off. But maleness is a purely biological description built into our DNA, as Leachcim quite rightly point out. But man is obviously a higher level concept that deals with certain principles, personal principles. Again, Leachcim made mention of them, and governed by certain ethics, which I think is what Garth is alluding to. So the male looks to be served, and the man looks to be of service.
I love that.
And to a large extent, the validation of what makes you a man, perhaps to a large extent, come from both the female and the children. So that for a man to be a man, you certainly have to ensure that your word is your bond. You live by certain rules, by certain principles. And it does not mean, which perhaps is something that the male takes up. Male believe that to be a man, you need to avoid emotions and you need to exhibit physical prowess. But I don't think so. Because I'm a male, but I'm a man. I mean, I say so unhesitantly. And I cry over movies. And I resign myself, and you and I have discussed this several times, Sandra. I resign myself to an understanding about relationship in which my wife dominates. Because in many respects, the man feels that, or rather the male feels that he must be the one who wear the pants, who must control and direct and everything. And maybe, there's so much lessons from biblical history. Adam and Eve, Samson was the strongest man, conquered by women. Other brethren who said, don't fool yourself. Don't wait. Women run this thing. Them control it. We're just weak to them. And maybe that is evident in the Adam and Eve story. I don't know. But the bottom line for me is that it is that to be a man is that title you have to earn. That matriculation into manhood is something that has to be validated by the society perhaps, and most certainly in a closer knit sense by your family, by a female wife, girlfriend, etc., and by children. But you said something in your introduction which I thought Leachcim would have corrected. In introducing us, you talk about a male's meal.
I
And
said,
I think I say without fear of contradiction on behalf of everyone on this panel that we'd much rather be described as a female's male.
all right. Okay. Point taken, Danny. Over to you now, Hugh. Not hearing you. Unmute.
I'm getting there.
Good
Good
night.
evening, all.
Good evening.
I'm absolutely delighted to be a part of this panel with my fellow panelists. And my contribution is going to look at what it means to be a man versus what maleness means in the different spheres of our lives. So I'd like to start with where I think we all should start, which is things spiritual. A man is interested in glorifying himself, while a male is interested in glorifying God. And when we speak about the glorification of God, we're speaking about standing up for what is right in a biblical sense. And maybe even more importantly, providing service to others. And Danny spoke about that aspect of service. A man seeks to be served, and a male is interested in serving others. And it is my view that to be a male, one has to put everything within the spiritual focus, because that is what is going to support you when things get rough. And that spiritual sense is not theoretical. It is manifest in the service to others. And I think that you cannot be a male if you are not you cannot be a male if you're not seeking to serve others, whether it be your school, whether it be in your community, whether it be in your church, whether it be in your professional associations. But there are other aspects. There is the aspect of family and what it means, and we have touched on that. But you know, I found it interesting that that very tragic situation that occurred last night, where a grandmother and her two girls were killed. I think I heard the gentleman on the station, but it was interesting that it was within the context of a grandmother, what might be a staple in the Jamaican society, that these two girls were with her. And I think if you are a male, you are required to support your children. And when I speak of support, I'm not speaking about financial support per se, but supporting your children so that they can achieve their maximum potential. But there are other aspects in which this dichotomy between man and male manifests itself in terms of work. What does it mean to be a man versus a male in the sphere of work? And I would say that it has to do with integrity. In everything you do at your workplace, integrity must be the basis. Your word must be your bond. And there are many quote unquote role models in our society. And when you look at this aspect of their maleness, there is an absolute lack of integrity. The final, I have quite a number of other things to say, but where I'd like to end at this stage is to look at friendship. What does it mean to be a friend to your male friends? And I think particularly in the Jamaican context, we struggle with this because many of us believe that when we share, we must share only our successes and we must not share our struggles. And that is a disservice to our fellow brethren, because in many areas of our friendship and our lives, mistakes are going to be made. You cannot live without making a mistake, but a mistake does not have to be permanent. It is really a lesson and a path to greater success.
Okay. Over to you, Courtney.
Good night, gentlemen. Good night, everyone. It's truly a pleasure to be a part of this panel. Dr. Leachcim Semaj, when I was 2 in school, I looked up to you. Danny, my first job, I looked up to you. I hope you negotiated for me. Gentlemen, it's truly a pleasure. But this whole topic of male man has always been something that you're thinking that you were born a man. And I remember you started off, Sandra, by saying about, can a woman raise a man? I am the byproduct of a woman, but I'll tell you more about that. But interestingly, when I looked at this topic today, as we were about to talk about maleness versus man, I came across, just by chance, an article that was written in 2018. And I want to share it with you. It says Time Opinion Essay. The title of the topic, the essay was "The Boys Are Not All Right." And it was written by a comedian, Michael Black. And he said, boys, though have been left behind, no movement has emerged to help them navigate towards a full expression of their gender. It is no longer enough to be a man. We no longer even know what that means. And as Dr. Semaj spoke about the gender department at UWI, sometimes we are confused because we don't know what it means to be a man, because society has defined what a man looks like. In fact, when we look at the men around us, we also define what a man is supposed to look like. We say to ourselves that a man is a gallus. We say that a man is a successful person. And Sandra, you brought it the idea, somebody who's in sports. And that's the definition that we have for a man. But then when you look at creation, and I'm going back to where Dr. Semaj had spoken about when God created man. And it was interesting how it says, God says, let us make man in our own image and likeness. In the image of God, made he male and female. You notice? Let us make man. And then he said, in the image of God, made he male and female. And when again were they called men? It was when God blew his breath into them. And I truly believe that when God blew his breath, man was fully man, because he understood work, he understood responsibility, and as Dr. Semaj says, intimacy came later on. But man had a responsibility. He had to work in the field, he had to name the animals, and he was fully man at the time. But at the fall of man, I think we reverted back to maleness. It is said that 60%, that's what Richard said, 60% of our manhood is defined by society. So if society said this is how a man looks, or a man's supposed to behave, we fit ourselves into what society says a man is supposed to be. And we look deeper into that in terms of, do I understand what it means to be a man? Do we understand what it means to be a man? Are we functioning as a man, or are we functioning as society dictates how we're supposed to be?
Okay, yeah, that's an excellent start. Over to you now, Jeremiah. I believe you are the youngest one of the bunch.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So it's good afternoon here.
The baby of the group.
So it's good afternoon here because I'm actually in Hawaii. So I'm not. It's about, what time is it? 3 o'clock here right now. I'm actually, I haven't arrived to my new assignment yet because I have to quarantine here for like 3 weeks before I go to the Marshall Islands, because they're one of the very few countries in the world that has zero COVID here in the Marshall Islands. So they don't want any COVID coming into their country. So I have to quarantine here. But I was, as you alluded to, I was in Jamaica for about 3 years, some odd, working at the embassy there as the Council for Public Affairs, which was a really interesting step because of my Jamaican heritage, you know, so having Jamaican background. But it was
Could you talk to us about that idea
Courtney,
that where
mute
we
your
are now
mic.
is a direct result of the failure of our government?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry about.
yeah, and so, you know, yeah, so I was saying, so, you know, for me, looking at male and man, I kind of take a little bit different point of view of it. I believe that the doctor that opened our conversation puts clear ideas about what values of what man and male were, which I think that overall, no matter where you are in the world, it's the same way. But I think due to me living in different countries, living in different continents, and experiencing how society, as was alluded to before, I think by Hugh, how society actually shapes what man is. I think I kind of take a different point of view. I'm not really binary on my point of view of what a male is supposed to do. Because, you know, for instance, I lived in 2 parts of Africa, North Africa, and I lived in East Africa. And I lived those 2 parts in the same, you know, there were.
You're breaking up.
What men, can you hear you? I'm breaking up.
Yeah.
How about now? Is it okay?
A little better, yes.
So I think, you know, even living in 2 parts of Africa, in the 2 parts of Africa I lived in, there were 2 different ideas about what male roles were, right? And then, you know, living in a Muslim country like Pakistan, there were still different ideas about what males were supposed to do in a society. And then I lived in 2 Latin American countries, a Caribbean Latin country and a North American Latin country, speaking the same language and the likes, but the whole concept of male was entirely different. So I think there are some generalities that go across the board, no matter where you live in the world, about what a male is. But I want to throw out this one caveat too about man, about I'm sorry, what men are. The actual biological point, males, I would challenge that too, because I lived in a country where I was confronted, I worked with a person that identified as a woman, but she was hermaphrodite. She had 2 gender organs, and in her society, her mom and dad protected her from others knowing about it because of the society's viewpoint on what a gender role, what a male is and a female is. So this person technically had 2 sex organs and the likes, and so she, by herself publicly as a woman, she did not married, and her parents was protecting her from marriage because they were afraid of what would happen if someone knew that she was not exactly that binary point of view of what a male is and what a female is. So I just wanted to throw that out there as we have this conversation.
Right. Okay. All right. So that's a good start. So all right, so we have some Courtney's lighting up the board, and he says, if a male comes into your life and he is not gainfully employed, check his pockets for a knife and fork, because him come to you out. that he and I don't know why he said Leachcim. Was that something that you said, Leachcim? Oh yes, that's what you said earlier.
Yeah, guilty as charged.
Okay, so all right, so basically what I'm hearing overall is that a man is doing it's what he does. A male who has graduated to a particular level of manhood. Now, what I want to do now is to break down, because what I'm seeing out there in my very limited scope not even really very limited anymore, because with internet you have a pretty much broad scope. What is happening with the males and in the schools, how they're interacting in relationships, many of them have taken a back seat. So let me go back to you now, Doc. How did we get there, and how can we navigate to having men become more of the doers and to understand? Because let me tell you my personal view. My personal view is that until we get the male and female balance right, or at least up a notch, society will continue to have the high level of crime and the high level of imbalance. Because to me, both sides have to have an understanding and be on the same page for us to move forward.
No, Sandra, you've opened that can of worms. You read to limit. If you understand what you've taken on here, in terms of what Jeremiah was talking about. Look, I said manhood are social constructs. So you'll have variations across different societies, right? But let us limit ourselves to our society here. Some structural things went wrong a long time ago. Do you know that we have 15 all-girls school and only 7 all-boys school? Decisions were made.
Before you go any further, what is your view on should the schools be unisex, or should you are you saying that they should have more
No, that's no. I have a view on that, but that's not the point I'm making. That secondary education was structured and provided for a lot more female than males. That's why you have 15 all-girls schools and only 7, and the co-ed schools are between 60 and 70% girls. There are certain parishes with St. Thomas, has one high school, because the males were supposed to just cut cane and cut banana. No, there's a wonderful book by Errol Miller that shows you what happened to our school system. Men used to use education to move out of poverty and to challenge the social system and move up. Teacher Allen, decisions were made to stop men getting into teachers' college and transform education to a female profession, because too many men were using it for upward mobility. So the University of the West Indies is now 80% female, right? I went to my daughter's graduation this weekend, and when I looked around the campus taking pictures, I had to look hard to find one boy because of where we have become. So that systems have been put in place to strengthen, to develop our women, our female, at the neglect of our boys. And if you can't earn it, you're going to hunt it. Going back to in primary school, I was a cub, I was a scout, and I was a cadet. So we had all these values granting, value shaping institution, helping to help boys to give memory. I posted from International Males Day, I posted some names. Yes, I grew up mainly with my mother, but I had options to draw from all different sources of the kind of man I choose to be. And Douglas Forrest, Isaac Henry, these were persons that talk to you regularly and so on. So the fact that you're growing with a mother, very, very early, I learned that left alone, my mother would turn me into her. She meant well. But the problem is that if you follow your mother's socialization, the problem with so many boys growing up with a mother, your mother is the only person that is telling you something that has sense. But you're coming into maleness. You're supposed to resist your mother. But if she's the only person telling you sensible things, you resist it and get into a very bad place. And so that's what's happening to a lot of our males are making the transition. And finally, what helps me to understand how I wish more males could understand the joy of being part of a child's life all the way through. When last year when my daughter became a judge, I still look for a judge in New York, and she asked me to speak on her behalf. The pride. A lot of males don't know that feeling. Boy, I have no future, no. And the fact that you are able to help nurture that entity. For all my children, I had naming ceremonies where I stood before my community and said, me do that. Me take personal responsibility for everything that this child requires. Right? And to see when you can be part of that and you contribute. But this society structured black men out of the picture.
But
limiting their educational options and their earning options over the last 60 years.
Because of slavery, men were used as studs to breed, and so it came right down the line, and men still think that they are breeders. That's what they are there for, to breed.
That's a little, but I'm going beyond that. Our political economy, it is our own black men who had the power in the society, limiting the access of other black men to education and hence income so they could control them. So we have work to do. And I've told people, you see, you raise your daughter, you need to raise your son the same way. Many people tell their daughters, go to school, study hard, pass your exam so you can take care of yourself so no man can come take liberty with you. So that what do we tell our boys? On a radio program, I asked you, what do you tell boys? Nobody had anything to tell me, what they told their daughters. But this notion of shaping a boy to become a man, we have not been doing that. So what happens? The DJ take it over. The sports person take it over. All of those entities now become the bad man, the gunman take it over. So that we not have enough of these positive, pro-social images of manhood who proudly talk about it. Anywhere I'm on the road or anything and I hear a group of males talking and some arms house argument, I buy out the argument. I say, boss, you can't do that. Because nobody's ever told them, no, you can't do that. Nothing can go so. So that we have to interject ourselves into, because then when come kill we. So many mothers have their boy, him is now 15, then him turn 20, and then 25 and 35. And look what happened. From your girl is 5, you give her a pail for wash her underwear and teach her to take care of herself. Enough mothers have sons who are 25 and 35 and 45, and them still wash the boy drawers. Him living at home and them give him credit, them give him everything them want. Him can carry a girlfriend, come to the house and so on, all of that kind of thing. So that we have underdeveloped our boys, and we're paying the penalty, we're paying the price for it now.
Okay. All right. So next up is Garth, because you are a father of a son. So over to you.
I listened again, and I'm gonna go back where I start in terms of the ecology, and I'm gonna take Danny piece a little bit apart. He spoke about the social sciences. Fundamentally, what is happening to our beloved country is we have lost our own identity. We seem to be taking on other countries' identity. The manhood I know about, and I go back to straight distinction. I myself has traveled, and I'm a little bit confused where in other countries how they define a man. Here we open doors for ladies, it's ladies first. In other cultures, the men go first. So for me, what shapes the character of a man is my society and my Caribbean society. I studied in Trinidad. How we call man here is how them call man there, and right through the Caribbean. But my son lives in the States, and it becomes a spit of a bother because they have different cultures. That's what make them who they are. There's no straight definition. Jeremy spoke about I was born a male, but I identify as a female. We're not quite there yet. I hear we're
No,
going
the
there.
person had both sexes, remember?
You remember for that?
I understand. Yeah, I understand that. You're hermaphrodite. I understand that. But for me, it comes back to your experiences, your role model. Douglas Forrest is also a role model of mine. Woody Miller, Reverend Kitson, Serrana Kitson, my brother, my father. Them man, their man. Them even the mere underwear that we wear just look like man underwear. Don't laugh. They ain't a joke. It's how things are. Is when we start to get a little bit older, we realize, okay, these are some of the finer things. That it's not really feminine, like having a mani-pedi, totally male. But one time gone, man not do them thing there. But as you grow older, because you're young, as you grow older, you start to learn from your experiences. And for me, a man is one who go and seek knowledge. I had a problem with some things. Now you know me into my Rasta thing, right? And I go and read.
Ballad Rasta.
In the art. You understand? So when you look at it, for me, it's a function of your society that you're brought up in, and God loved Jamaica, and we love Jamaica too. So my definition and my understanding of man, I'm sorry, is in the confines of my little shores, because outside of our shores, it gets very, very, very interesting. So a man for me is defined simply by the experiences, the role models, and I think it was Hugh or somebody once said, don't be afraid to fail, and illustrating that I have failed, but it's not the end.
Patricia is asking, is society then responsible for emasculating the male?
Well, look, society has a major responsibility. One of the first thing I said, these are social constructs. So if society is not clear on what it is, it's even harder. We're up against all kinds of forces. And if I may just add something to what Garth said, years ago, a Father's Day 5K in the opening ceremony for it and the launch, Frano made an incredible statement. Frano said that my father is my role model, and he paused, of what not to be. Understand me? So even in him said all the things my father was a drunkard, and he explained, and what I learned from that is no way to live. So even by being in the negative, something can still kick in that tells you that you get an example of what not to be. But society parameters, but then we have options. That's what free will is all about.
Right.
So we have things that guide us.
Okay.
That social construct of which you speak is obviously born out of both historic and cultural circumstance. And the question is, how do we define a man? Again, if we look back into our African heritage, we come away with a notion that it means how much woman you have and all of those kind of things. But one of the things that we struggle to do, and I agree with God, one of the things that we have to struggle to do is to define our existential reality within the context of our own experience. And whilst we need to understand in a global environment that we can be respectful and tolerant of other people's views and opinions, that doesn't mean that must be imposed upon us. because we need to resist it and resent it. So one of the things that has bedeviled the region, Sylvia Winter wrote about it in her book, The Hills of Hebron, is how do we define ourselves in the context of a slave past to be the masters of our own souls, the creators of our own destiny? How do we define that? What makes us a human and a man to be able to achieve that? And therefore, in our context, if we are to overcome the colonial legacy in our education system and other areas, then we have to find a way to redefine what we expect of our citizenry, male and female, man and woman, in terms of creating the new political polity, new social reality within which we can all live based upon certain creed that I think we all accept. We want to live in freedom, we want to live in prosperity, and please don't make anybody say that beyond this, that quote me beyond here, the use of the word prosperity.
Yeah, nobody owns the word prosperity, my brother. In fact, I use the word
as a matter of fact, in 1955 that was the slogan of the People's National Party.
Yeah. No,
People, nation, and prosperity.
Use the word affluent so as to avoid the contradiction.
Exactly. So we have a sense of the ideal being that we want to become and to shape. And how do we get there? And I am connecting that social construct of woman is that definitional notion of a man is defined for me in that regard. We have to debunk some of the myths about how we treat our women, because there are some cultural legacies which tells us otherwise, right? And like Garth, I also have defined my father has been my role model as to what not to do and to be like. Everything that my father does, I do the opposite. So, yes, what is it that we think is an ideal functionality of us as human beings in the development of the society? What is it that we want? Can we define that? And then, if we define that and use that biological construct of male and female, then we should all become man and woman in the final analysis.
You want to pick up that, Jeremiah? You want to pick up from there? Jeremiah, hearing me?
I'm not sure. Maybe stop. Listen, there's an important article in Sunday's paper by Dr. Gale, looking at these same issues. And one of the points he make, the women's movement received a whole heap of funding over the last 30 years.
Absolutely.
And nobody is prepared to fund the male man movement. So that the kind of funding was required, the kind of to get the kind of promotion, all the things that Danny's talking about, it won't come about by accident.
I have something to say about that. I have something to say about that, which someone had said to, I think, was it him? No, or somebody before that, because I'm a member of the Gender and Disabilities Committee at PSOJ, and I'm telling you, it's a lot of the systems that are put in place is because of where we were as women, where we were, not where we are. That's how I see it.
When we talk about violence against women, 95% of people are men.
What you said, sir?
No, I said, for example, all this talk about violence against women, but 95% of the people who are murdered are men. So is that violence against men is a bigger problem? With 90% of people who are incarcerated are men. The highest suicide rate of anything that kills people, except only one area women have a higher death rate than men. It's called childbirth. And if man could have children, would have dead faster too. Every area, anything that kills people kills more men than women. From conception, 80% of reproductive waste is male, meaning the miscarriages and the stillborn and so on. So the fragility of this male is there. and the society is also part of the conspiracy. So a lot of work is required to bring about what examining general.
100% with you. Jeremiah, pick up from there. Yes.
You hear me now?
You keep on freezing though.
Okay. No, I mean, yeah, this Wi-Fi here is pretty bad. So, you know, the pickup only
Bad.
I've stated, I completely agree with this whole idea of that. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
You're freezing. You're stopping and starting. I'm hearing you, but in bits and pieces. It's
pretty bad Wi-Fi here, I guess.
A direct connection.
This is the best that they have. What I can do, I can just message and you can share, but it's hard to do that.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Let us hear as quickly as possible.
No, I just was saying that I agree with the whole idea of that society has to make a decision. You know, what is the male in that society. But by the same token, I agree also when it's depending on that society, and we should be respectful of everyone's particular societal views on what males are. I think in that's what I see, because me coming from a background, I grew up with my dad. I had 4 brothers in my family. I grew up with my grandfather, and they're all from Jamaican, they're Jamaican. So my point of view was from a Jamaican American point of view of what male were. I mean, that was challenged in a way when I started having to live with others that had other points of view of what males were in their societies. And that token, even with religion, it's kind of strange. Like my grandmother was our pastor, so a female was the pastor in the family. And not only that, I'm part of the largest and oldest denomination in the world to be started by a Black woman. And so, and they never had a man president until 2001. So, I grew up in that situation where, I had strong men figures in my life, and my father and my grandfather, and living with 4 brothers, but also had very strong female characters that think together to make me the man and the day. But I think that, and society, I think the whole idea of what masculinity is going through and I could talk about the U.S. is going through I guess a reevaluation, but I don't think that's just unique for right now. I think that if you look at over the centuries, what an idea of what a male was has actually also evolved too. If you look at 200, 300, 400 years ago, about if you look at societies, what a male. I mean, and I think that we're going to constantly be in that process. But I do think that there are clear pictures from humanity, period, that males fall into. But how it's expressed, I think expressed depending on the culture that you live in and then the age that you're currently living in.
Okay. Courtney, you want to pick up from there?
Yeah, I want to go back to something that was said by Garth, Danny, and Dr. Semaj. They spoke about culture, that culture defines the manner. But we have to understand, in our culture, there's a culture in the culture. Because then you have somebody from the inner city, and that's a different culture from another culture. So I'm going to use me growing up in the inner city, because I did. And one of the things that we saw in terms of a real man was pretty much we call them Don now, but the area leader, or we saw the man that run the place. And that man was the definition of a man, because he had not only the girls, but he seemingly had all the money. We never saw him going to work, but he drove some of the biggest vehicles, right? And so that culture, if you are in that culture, seemingly power, but as you grow older, and Dr. Semaj said something, and he mentioned a name that caused me to smile, because the man that I am is as a result of that man, S.W. Isaac Henry, right? So I was in the culture, and I'm sharing something with you that I don't readily share everywhere. At 15, a gun was put into my hand, right? So, and that spoke about the power. You could, once you have that, you could do anything. But because of the influence of because my father was never around. My father went away when I was 5 months old, or so I was told. And so there was no strong male influence in my life until my mother married somebody, and he was a male figure in my life. But until you had somebody like a S.W. Isaac that came in and had a conversation with me about what it meant to be a man, it was then that I started to decide where I wanted to go and where I wanted to be. And so I started to understand that just having the hair on your chest and a penis in your pants, or having several girls, it's not what makes you a man. It comes down to the responsibility that you take, the integrity of my word is my bond. Some of the things that in some culture within our culture, we take for granted. We're saying that if I have the girl, I'm the man. I use this example. When I was a teenager growing up, my mother always said that you're going to be like a dirty pooper. And some of our females say these things up to our boys, and our boys become like that. And she said, you're going to be like a dirty pooper. And by the time I was in high school, I was like my dirty pooper. I was a womanizer. And so what we want to call it was self-fulfilled prophecy. And so I became like that. And it was not until I was coming in school one morning and this huge man standing at the rail called me, S.W. Isaac Henry, called me upstairs and had a conversation with me. And some of those conversations that he had with me shaped how I saw myself and where I wanted to be. And I didn't want to be the person that I was becoming, because I was becoming that person, right? So when I tell you that, so let's go back to Gregory Isaac had a song. It was called My Time. Everybody would know this song. It says, I need nothing to be a man, because I was born a man and I deserve the right to live like any other man. But which man was he talking about? How was that man cultured? Where was that man coming from? And so if I don't have a strong influence in my life, a strong male presence in my life, who is going to teach me what it means to be a man, then I'm going to be the man that I'm seeing. I'm going to emulate the person I'm looking at that I consider a man. And so if we are not going to take upon ourselves to mentor a boy into what we are speaking about now in terms of the moving from the maleness to a man, we will continue to have males in our society who don't know how to treat a woman, who don't speak to a woman properly, who will never open a door for a woman because man not do them things there. Because that's his definition of a man.
All right.
Can I share something with you?
Well, let's
share something.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Danny. Because Hugh has raised 2 boys. So let us hear his perspective and then I'll come back to you, Danny.
Well, what I wanted to say is that it will be a disservice if after we have finished this program, we do not speak about how we can change what I call the dysfunctional man syndrome, which is prevalent in the Jamaican society. And
before I go any further, Hugh, from VB3, she says, he says, where should the paradigm shift begin? At home or at school? What initial steps need to be taken and by whom? They can take it from there.
All right. I like that question.
Courtney.
I like that question because it feeds into what I was going to say. So I want to put 3 things on the table in terms of bringing about change, and they're mutually reinforcing. One, education. Leachcim spoke about the fact that the system is skewed towards the education of girls over boys. I am proposing that we need affirmative action in Jamaica in respect of our boys, because we cannot have a situation where 80% of the graduates at university are women. Who are they going to partner with?
So not everybody understands the word affirmative or what affirmative action means. Can you just kind of just boil it down a little bit for all intents and purposes for everybody to understand?
Affirmative action means that we are now going to take action. We're now going to divert resources to bringing more of our boys into the school system so that they will no longer have to say, my career, my model is a Vibes Cartel or a Beanie Man. Now, that falls into what I call my second factor, which is, the PNP had something, PJ Patterson had something called values and attitudes. It didn't get anywhere, but it didn't get anywhere because it was not properly executed. The fact of the matter is, values and attitudes is not a PR campaign. It involves, first of all, family, because part of the problem is that our family structures have broken down. I would say the majority of boys now, they don't know who their father is. If they go for their birth certificate, is their mother name on it alone. And those things have an impact on their psyche. The whole issue of how we develop role models. There was a survey that was done about who are the role models for our youngsters. You know who they are? Vibes and Beanie Man. I listened to university graduates. I saw it myself. And the interviewer asked them who was their role model. These are the creme de la creme of our young people. And they weren't any different. Vibes Cartel and Beanie Man. The last thing I want to say, and Danny Roberts will identify from where I come in. We have committed two colossal mistakes in Jamaica. One was the diversion of the education tax into the consolidated fund, because the education tax was a means to bring about the funding for affirmative action. And the second big mistake, National Housing Trust and how it has been treated, because there will be no equity, there will be no growth without solving the problem of housing in Jamaica, where as soon as rainfall, whole communities are being swept away. You cannot raise a family, you cannot raise strong boys into men in the housing or what pass for housing in Jamaica. Those, I would suggest, are some of the solutions we have to put on the table.
Danny?
Yeah, can I say, I'm not sure that the education process must begin from the womb to the tomb or from the erection to the resurrection. But what I can say is that about 15 years ago, a study was done by one of our colleagues at the Munda campus, Anna Perkins, Leachcim.
Yeah, man.
They studied 15 years ago, when she asked some 78-year-old inner city youths and draw a picture depicting Jamaica and how you see it for the future. And every one of them, bar none, violence, bloodshed, mayhem, you name it. That was 15 years ago. Those boys and girls, particularly the boys, are in the age cohort of our criminal elements in society. So we have done nothing in that 15 years to reorient them to engage in what Professor Icklin calls social reengineering. Because the bottom line, unless, and the question was raised, unless we begin to refocus our educational system, to your correct Hugh, begin to put values and attitudes as part of the curriculum. Questions of dealing with our low self-esteem, all remnants, all part of a post-colonial slave syndrome. Unless we make a concerted effort to decolonize our education system and begin to address some of these massive distortion in how we think, how we view each other, and how we view ourselves. We're going to be talking about this in another 10 to 15 years. And I can tell you that because I'm also a product of the inner city, right? I mean, I lived in violence, gunshot, left, right, and center. But if you ask any one of those dons, or anybody try to disrespect any one of those dons, mother or daughter, then you'll know what value them place upon female when them react. So there's a sense in which it's part of the cognitive dissonance, if you like. We have a sense of what is real and what we want. And we want it for ourselves and our family, but we don't seem to want to spread it to others. And until I am by no means religious, but one of the greatest quotation out of the Bible is the scripture which tells us, do unto others, and you can tell me which one that is. Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. If 15% of Jamaican people believe in and practice that motto, this country would take off.
All right, so before you answer, Doc, Courtney is saying, is it possible to uplift women without demonizing or marginalizing men? The Me Too movement is one to watch. Guilty abusers are to be held responsible, but this must be without a shadow of a doubt. And to add to that, what I want to also ask, because Doc has started the conversation about the funding being always going in the direction.
Let me give an example of how this come about. This answer this question.
Yes.
About 25, almost 30 years ago, I was research fellow for child development at UWI. And I visited all the various territories and looked at how family issues and children issues were being. And I saw a phenomenon in St. Lucia called the Mothers and Fathers Organization, which was the dominant development organization. And UNICEF asked me to go back and study it. How did they evolve something called the Mothers and Fathers? And here's what happened. It started out as a very Catholic society there, St. Lucia. They had a big Mother's Day celebration all over St. Lucia. And then the fathers kind of get jealous and say, boy, let's keep Father's Day celebration to see if we can. And each one try to outdo the other, which can make it bigger. And in one society, one community, they said, why are we competing? Why not let us join it together and call it Mothers and Fathers? And we both celebrate Mother's Day and we both celebrate Father's Day. Would you believe that eventually? Because that now is the same people who are the PTA. It's the same people who are the voters. It became the biggest organization that anybody running for office had to go talk to the Mothers and Fathers organization. One society, one community, ancillary. It never happened there. You know why? WAND, Women and Development Movement at UWI, they started a program in ancillary, a women's movement program. And the women there rejected that because, listen to this carefully now, remember that mothers and fathers, now the women movement, the mothers organization was turned to a women's organization because they said that the mother is a discriminatory and a limiting word. Once you now focus on the women's organization, men became the enemy and children the obstacle. It was all about the women's development. I mean, no grudging them, but the dialectics never took place in that. The only place there, you didn't have the reciprocal thing taking place there, where mothers give rise to father, and together they became the Mothers and Fathers organization. So that, yes, we can. Yes, we can. But we have to break down the dialectics because the kind of funding over the last 40 years for the women's movement, which are now called the gender movement, and many of them are so steep that men are the obstacle, men are the problem, men are the... So we have to find a way without demonizing that, listen, it is okay to be a man. the only word that they will use is the toxic masculinity. We have to get rid of patriarchal thinking because you think that you think too much, you sound too much like a man. So it can be done. Now, the school has a big part to play, as what the other speakers have said. Again, 15 years ago or so, I went to the Ministry of Education with a program. My estimate, in every school back then, there were at least, say, 12 to 20 boys who were in the departure lounge, right? Their behavior, they were just one step away from being expelled. And once that happens, you know what happens then. I went to the ministry with a program that I developed, and the minister told me we don't have the budget for that. I said, Mr. Minister, unless you find some budget for this, all you will do is defer the problem to the Ministry of Justice and National Security.
Absolutely.
Not GCT.
That's where I was going there, because okay, I am looking at it. As I was privy to a meeting the other day, and they were talking about women, abuse of women and all of that. And I'm saying the abuser is the man. So why isn't funding being put into the prevention rather than after the lady gets beaten? You have to take care of her. You have to find shelter. You have to protect her. You have to do so many other things. Wouldn't it be easier and cheaper to put well, we're not choosing, because right now we're in the middle of it, or it's bad, right? But what I'm saying, why isn't funding being put towards the abuser? Or why does an abuser become an abuser? So if you kill that, then you won't have an abused.
What you have just said, that's exactly what Dr. Gale has in this first paragraph in the Sunday article, that when a woman in his violence class raised that exact point, that if you correct one abuser, you save 100 victims. But philosophically, people want to put the money, all right, let us now help the victims. But nobody is dealing with the so-called abuser.
It will never stop.
Because if you don't change that behavior, you're creating more. You're just massively. So the question is about home or
school. Same good with the crime.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with the crime. You're going to.
We're not focusing on cause. We're focusing on consequences. Yes. We're not focusing on cause.
Because so much of our thinking from a political standpoint is just the next election. We're not taking a long-term look at things. We're not looking at things developmentally. Can it get me vote in the next election? And we're taking all these shortcuts.
But it's so straightforward. If you teach people to read, if you follow up with parents and teach parents how to take care of the kids, if you treat the boys and the girls equally, it must come out in the washing of that. There's no, if for all the funding and everything that we have put into women, right? And now the women are soaring to higher heights, and I'm a product of it, and I'm very appreciative of all that has gone into us. But what I'm saying, for those of us who would like to have a husband and an equal to us,
and a man husband, right?
Man husband, right? Rather than having to settle, right? And having to live in abusive homes, why aren't we seeing that it needs to be addressed like yesterday? That's my thing. So my thing, or my department, you can hear how passionate I'm about it, because I don't want to leave the men behind. I don't. As a matter of fact, the last 26 years of my life have been poured into boys and men, because I feel strongly that without that balance, we can't. It's an impossibility to go any further. I mean, somebody has to nurture in the family, right? Somebody has to nurture the kids, but all of us know we're going to college, we're going to university, and I'm not saying that the feminist movement didn't help a lot of women. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, why do we have to choose? That's what I'm asking. Garth, why do we have to choose? Why aren't the men stepping up? Why are you comfortably taking a back seat as to where you are now relegated to? I mean, yes, the 1 and 2 persons are there up into the you're running companies, doctors, lawyers, Indian chief. However, you're still abusers. You're still not the role model in the household, because when you ask the same child in the household who is your role model, it's still his mother. I did a competition one time. It was a man international competition. You had 18 contestants. Out of the 18, 1, and this was all over Jamaica, 1 lived with, no, sorry, like 2 lived with his dad. And even the 2 that lived with his dad, the mother was a role model. How did we get here? Yes, Garth.
It's very simple. My personal position in chemistry, you learn something about systems in equilibria, Le Chatelier's principle, on either sides of the equation. Unfortunately, Sandra, the ladies, they get what you ask for. On a struggle, don't allow me to finish.
Explain.
Allow me to finish. I'm going to explain. You wanted the power, you get it. You wanted the education, you get it. You now have the money, you get it. In my inner city community, you know what the man then tell me? Yo, father, she done want me already because me have the stiffness. So,
no, but why do we have
to, let me finish now.
But why do we have to choose? And okay, answer the question. Why is
a typical example, Sandra?
He comfortable? Why is he comfortable accepting that role if he's the man?
But you will support him.
Exactly, Sandra. That's a simple point we're making.
His mother supports his slackness. His mother, he might have him in the house until he's 35. All these, listen, my good friend Bert Samuels, you know, attorney at law, he says that many women are going to have a rude awakening, you know, coming to them around this whole issue of, you understand how the whole issue when you have a common law union, and if it goes past 5 years, then you can have all the rights and privilege. He says the amount of careless boy who will end up owning woman's house because she take up with this careless boy, them live together, and once it reaches 6 years now, you know, he is eligible for half of the house. So that women, to a large extent, again, many women have lowered the bar in traditional African society. A man had to be able to hunt and build a hut before a woman would give him access to her womb. Now, if him pants just round the bottom and him cute and so on, a lot of males are being elevated to literally the bedroom and the boardroom by women. So he doesn't have to prove himself. He doesn't have to do anything. All of us is cute. All right. And
okay.
Him get through.
Okay, no, hold on. All right. If I am to buy that, what you are saying is he has no personal pride.
But we don't need any. Him get money from you. Him can drive the car. What more you want?
No, but okay. All right. So women now have their stuff.
1 second, Sandra. 1 second, Sandra.
Before you say anything.
No, 1 second. I have to stop you. No, Sandra, hold on.
Yes.
Hold on. What Doc is talking about is what society has defined as success. You said that thing that people see on the outside that defines our success is what is distorting things, because him look good, him can carry to the the Chamber of
Yeah,
Commerce dinner. Hold on, Sandra, hold on.
but where is his pride?
Sandra, hold
I'm
on.
not responsible for his pride.
But the basicity of it has been spoiled from growing up. We're asking these male, we are now what, 50, whatever. If we didn't raise our sons good, what we expect to happen, he don't know any better. So what Hugh said, if we leave here without any true solution, I want to be part of the solution, but to be very honest with you, I'm failing because I'm not getting through to them, because it comes back to Sandra. The ladies in Jamaica, they study hard, they spend all the time in university, and they have now acquired everything that they have. Now them all look a man. But man shot.
Can I say?
But can I?
Okay, but we have, and I'm speaking for the ladies. We have left the role of the house. We have gotten ourselves educated. We are, but it's not to penalize the men. It's not to penalize the men. We're talking about sharing the household here and sharing the children and raising them together. Why? Because I have become educated and become financially stable. You have taken a backseat. That, to me, that don't make any sense.
But
So
there are two kinds of men.
There's no
Jacob, there are two
matriculation. The man he matriculates right into your heart, into
Yes,
your
but-
bedroom, into your life without you insisting. If they had to do anything to
That's
achieve
one aspect of his life.
but they
His
don't have
life
to.
partner is one aspect of his life.
There are two kinds of men that we need to separate. And we're talking primarily about the worthless one. No. But there are two kinds of men. There are those who see no value in tertiary education. The 1990s, for example, has created a new entrepreneurial spirit among the black class coming out of the plantation, because we're never cultured to get into entrepreneurship. And circumstances led us to get into business. We saw no value in spending 3 or 4 years in university to come out to seek employment that provides us with no income greater than if we had spent the time there. And so what a newspaper article some years ago, the Gleaner, showed us that a lot of women who were now going into tertiary education ended up marrying and working for men who left high school, went into business, set up small own account businesses, and they were, so some of them can barely read and write, but ended up with the women, educated women who are working for them. That was a story. No, I didn't say something wrong with that. I'm just saying that there's that also element of it, which means that in a society that don't place any value upon tertiary education, and where you can make a quick buck by some other means, that's what you're going to end up with.
No, but hold on, Danny, hold on. Tertiary education is not everything, right? Because a lot of people go to university and have no common sense. Them still poor, still broke, right? Even with them tertiary education, right? Let us get that
That's
clear.
the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making.
Right? No, I am saying if you, what I'm seeing is like, because it is like either or. If the woman has elevated herself, why has it come to a situation where the men have just fallen back? We as women could have said, oh my God, oh, they're so full of men, we're not going to go out there and push out, but we have. So why have the men fallen back? That's the question I'm asking.
But why won't you accept? Because you matriculate him without him having the matriculation requirement. He can, if you can get milk, you have to.
Everything is about sex. That's what you're saying, Dr. Semaj.
If you can get milk, if you can get eggs and milk, you have to buy phone. The women have.
So you have no personal pride.
But I have pride. I have pride because I can deliver a service for which I'm well compensated. I'm well compensated. A lot of women allow males a free ride. So listen, again, if males had to in order to get access to a woman's womb, he had to do something. What he has learned is that if I become a big artist, if I can bust a tune, when I ask young men, is it easier to become a big time DJ or to become a medical doctor? Most of them say big time DJ. No, how much DJ bust last year? 5? How many doctors graduated last year? 380? Once you go to school and follow the curriculum, it is straightforward how you become a doctor or an engineer or so on, How you become a big time DJ? We don't know, You can carry box, you can go dance every night for 10 years and never. But because they see that model and they believe that model, and they don't understand that education provides you with a permanent capacity to do anything. I have been trying to explain to the artists and the footballers, use the lockdown, first of all, play football video games. All that to keep you, but also use that same online to prepare for your after football career. Because it is only so far the football will take you. But then after, most of them will not make a living from it, The athletes, most of the entertainers would not make a proper living from it, You still need to be able to do something for yourself. And in the short run, we have not given these males enough incentive. No, I so happen to, it was beaten to me from me 5 or less, that the only option I have in life is education. And I actually believed. And yes, I too grew up for my first 13 years of life below Torrington Bridge. I walked to Central Branch. I walked to KC, walking distance. But even though I lived in those communities, my mother made it clear that even though you live here, you're not off here. When you come from school, go in the room and stand and do your work.
But
I don't want nobody calling you. My father had left my mother by the time when I was 7. But guess what he did? He wrote me a letter every month for the next 10 years until college. And there was a $10 money order in there. I had a 10-year conversation with my father. He wasn't there. Sir.
Leachcim, the difference between when Leachcim was growing up and now is that when Leachcim was growing up, who were the role models? The role models were the teachers, the few doctors and so on. Now, all of the young people, they don't know. They don't have a role model who's a doctor or an engineer. What are their role models? You say
I, as a father, all my children, I do the most non-productive thing that I take them to school in the morning and go for them in the evening. I hear their dreams and their aspiration. Once a song comes on the radio, which is non-productive and non-positive, I said, turn it off. I had a sound system when my children growing up. So them in around music, and I tell them what can play and what can't play, so they understand that daddy said that can't play. So that I tell them that I am the program director for my house, for TV, radio, and all appliances. I determine what can play in my house, so that I don't allow Beanie Man or Vibes Cartel or Movado or anybody to be. Yes, they can access that elsewhere, but guess what? They have a frame of reference. My father said that can't play. So
standard.
But Sandro,
Andre Blackwood says, he's having a problem with what I said. Andre is my client, so we have these conversations. He says, where is his pride for being elevated? This is what I said, being elevated by a woman in a higher stature. Yet women have been getting by for many years. Question sign, question sign, question sign. Address that.
Look, I think we have driven it into our women, you know. I told you, I tried on a radio program, what do you tell your boys? And everybody tell me what they tell their daughter. What do you tell your boy to make him into a man? Well, I tell my daughter, go to school and study hard and get a good career and don't let the man take liberty with you. No, what do you tell your boy? I tell my daughter, I'm saying that we have to, my youngest son, at his naming ceremony, the blessing he got was so incredible. Dr. Carolyn Kuba said, Hassani, may you learn to cook so no woman can take liberty with you.
Absolutely.
Would you believe that when he was at UA, he lived on campus for a year? And daddy, all them can cook is curry chicken back, you know. So when I go there himself, when he's having jerk lamb today, and then he's having lasagna tomorrow. By the end of the first week, everybody start now put their money with him, so that he will now cook for them, and they can come in at his boat because he raised their standard, so that all them was cooking was chicken back and curry chicken back. So I'm saying that just that being able to cook, it transformed his life. And he took. But when he was 10, he asked me, "Can you go to a cooking class for the summer?" Right. So I'm saying that parenting, we can't go around it. Parenting parameter and the school system, those are the official parenting mechanism of the society where the values should be promoted and presented.
Courtney, what about the church? How the church come into this, Courtney?
I wish I could tell you that the church plays the role that it's supposed to play. I believe the nurturing of the boy actually should begin in the home. That's what I believe. And so I want to go back to where you're asking. Hugh said something about affirmative action, but I believe that even the same way our mothers tell our daughters that they must grow up and do this, and I believe also that you're supposed to raise your boys in a particular way. Now, the structure of the church is for the church to teach the boy the right way. You know, so I often say to people say, you know, I don't believe in God. I say, but if you follow what the scriptures say, is it going to lead you on a path that is wrong? No, it's not going to. It's going to teach you some principles. So the church is supposed to teach the boy the right principles in terms of how he is to grow up under the right thing. And if you follow that. But in terms of what the church has become, and the truth is that the church has become commercialized. It has become commercialized, and a lot of what we are supposed to do in terms of mentor boys, we have fallen down in some of those areas. Am I saying that all the churches have done that? No, because it was while going to church, I learned about male mentorship to mentor the younger boys in the inner city. And I primarily do inner city boys simply because I feel like we have, as men, let our boys down. I feel that in some ways we have let our boys down because we have bought into the thing that society will dictate how a boy is supposed to behave and how he becomes a man. But and also when you're talking about, I believe your client had said something about the woman and how the woman has been doing it for a while. Not because the woman has been doing it for a while means it's right. It's not. It means that we are supposed to encourage, and encouragement has been lost in our society in terms of encouraging a boy what you are supposed to do to become better, to become a better person. Mentorship don't take anything out of you, know. I mean, I think Leachcim alluded to it, but I'm saying if you take up a boy under your wing and you sit with him for even 1 hour of a week, you will train that boy into thinking differently from what his environment is starting to be. Is the church doing it? Unfortunately, not all churches.
Well, Jeremiah, you have anything to say? Because Jeremiah is, by the way, Jeremiah is an awesome cook. Awesome cook. And I mean, we always have these conversations about, you know, these young men and what's happening with these young men these days. And I mean, I get what you're saying, Jeremiah, in terms of, you know, how fluid life is now. But crime everywhere is high. So we are failing, or should I say, you guys, because I'm not a man, you guys seem to be failing the men or the youngsters, the boys in society. So what are you gonna do about it?
Sandra, by default, the majority of boys are raised by their mothers.
Yeah, but
So
Jeremiah,
hold on. Let me put another spin on this. The majority of children in Jamaica, the term that announces they're about to be arrival is a woman or a female saying to a male, I miss my period, you know. And then he says, so where tell me that for? Because there was no a priori discussion about fatherhood and motherhood between the two of them. She has the greatest consequence. So
yes.
she is now breeding. And the person she's breeding for, the first thing, where tell me that for? There was no discussion. She chose him because him cute and him hot, but was he father material? Was he worthy of his sperm, his DNA being going into the next generation? So that I want to say, mothers have a role to play with what they do with their boys. Women have a role to play and who they allow into their life, because you set the standards. You give the signal to the males. Listen, here's my standard. Here's how you get into my life. But no, we're not doing that at all anymore. When I see some bleach out face males on the road, right, with some tight up
persons,
and with some tight up pants.
Persons.
I mean, the pants is 3 sizes too small for them, because it itch up on the bottom of them bottom, and it comes to them way past them ankle. No, some girl tell them say them cute. Some girls say, whatever you I love your pants. So that you all have given the signal. And listen, sex is one of the most, the promise thereof, the hope therefore, and all of it is one of the most powerful motivating force for men. That's historical, that's biological. Female, you can fake it. You can pretend that you're interested. The man has to be aroused. You can't go around it and fake it. So it's a full court press. Fathers have a job to play. Mothers have a job to play. School system have a job to play. And collectively, the ball is being dropped. So it is even harder. I try to do in everything I do. When I post pictures on social media involving issues about parenting and fathering, I want some men to feel guilty. That, yeah, mommy, I have 10 youth, you know, but hold on. How did you contribute to their education, to their nurturing and so on? I want them to feel guilty, because the standard must be there. It don't just happen by accident. Well, I want my youth to become. What are you planning to do about it? I took my children to school. I went for them after school. I went to PTA meetings. Not just mothers go to those places. I go to talk with the teacher. I discuss their career options with them. For me, that's part of what a man is. Active parenting. So we have to start talking that and walking
Absolutely.
and demonstrating it.
Absolutely. It's your time, Jeremy.
So
Jeremiah?
I just can you hear me? So like, you know, I very clearly see that there's some generational differences and ideas, which I appreciate. I do appreciate that. I think I'm the youngest one here, so my viewpoint is a little different. Also coming from being raised in the youth. But I will say this: I was blessed that my father was very, very strict and clear about how he raised his 4 boys. We were not allowed to be called boys. He told us that we were young men. So that's the only way people could talk to us. If they call us a boy, we would respond back and say, my father told me I'm not no boy, I'm a young man. And so that's how we were raised. My granddad was the same way. We were given, and these whole gender roles. No, my father ironed clothes. My father did grocery shopping. My mother taught me how to cook because they thought it was important for their boys to know how to cook. And then they sent me to the largest and the only all-male university and the black male university in the U.S., Morehouse College, where I learned, even about the history of black men in America. When I came to Jamaica and I was working in Jamaica, and part of my portfolio in Jamaica was education. So I went to Reid all the time. I went to all the universities, went to high schools, and and I kept trying to encourage the young men to get involved in applying for the Fulbright, applying for scholarships, also entrepreneurship. We have specific programs for entrepreneurs that the embassy pays for. And it was a struggle to get young men to apply.
Wow.
And I was wondering what is going on. And it goes back to your conversation about boys need to think that they can do it. They need to think that they can achieve. The bad thing I noticed after talking to a lot of young men is mothers would take out their anger from the fathers on boys and would therefore give them this whole negative mentality of man and male. And so I worked with Ray and Nephew Foundation to put together a young men mentoring program because it is so important for young men. I was blessed from a little child. I felt as though men were great because I had my granddad there, my dad there, my 4 brothers there, and the way they talked to us and treated us made us to feel that men were important for the household. And that doesn't negate strong women, because I had in my family extremely strong women. Like I said to you, my grandmother was the pastor of all of us. All of us, when we got to church, it didn't matter, wrong man at home. My grandmother was your pastor. But at the same token, it was very clear. And I was fortunate to have a father that really tried. And think that that's what young men, they will never achieve or even do any of this stuff if they can think that they can.
Yes. Gone again. Hello? Out again, Jeremiah.
I think he stopped speaking.
Oh. Were you finished? You're finished?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Jonathan says there is a significant peer pressure outside the home, which then puts fear in the child to not want to follow the teachings in the home, particularly for the male child. So, okay.
Jonathan is calling from Antigua.
Okay, great. Welcome, Jonathan. Welcome. All right, so what I want to do now is to wrap up, although it's so difficult to wrap up because it's like we're in the meat of it. It's for each one of you to give us how we go forward. What is the solution? Give us your contribution to a solution. Next week, we'll be speaking to Andre Blackwood. Andre, please remember to send what your title is again for me. He's a youngster, but he is involved in gender affairs, and he does a lot with the males and stuff. But he's going to be next week. We're going to have a follow-up next week. But we want to start the solution this week. What can be done, and not by women, by the males in the society? How can we help Dr. Fathers Inc., Herbert Gale. How can we help Dr. Herbert Gale on his mission to help the young, struggling males in the inner city as well as uptown, because trust me, it's everywhere. Crime is everywhere. Disobedience is everywhere. It's not only in the inner city, but it takes on a different hue uptown. Uptown is a money struggle and a gun struggle. Uptown, it may be abuse and a whole nother kettle of fish. So what I want from everybody is, in wrapping up, is just to say where we're starting, where can we start, how can we start, what needs to be done, and not only with men, but speak to the women also. The women that are holding their kids, their kids away from their fathers because the money now run, or because them hurt, or because you know, they use it as a pawn to, you know, you're not seeing a child unless you let off, kind of thing. And I mean, I don't have any children, so I can't speak to that, but because I know it's difficult. But I want someone to address the fact that we women are not really responsible for what a man does with his life, even if we are allowing them to still have sex with us. I still think that he should, I mean, we're living in a world of internet. Him not even have to read anymore. So gone are the days when saying don't know better. Those days are long gone. If I choose to have sex with you and you don't have no education, that should not make you want to be less of a man because you can get sex. I don't buy that. So starting from Garth, Dr. Semaj, Courtney, Danny, Hugh, then Jeremiah, and then we end.
Okay. For me, it's using the platforms that we have. I've been doing this online thing, reaching out to younger people. Somehow they see me as an elder. I didn't know I reached that stage.
The gray hair.
Yeah, apparently, and trying to kind of teach them. I mean, go back in the inner city. I'm a little bit privileged than most people. I'm from one of the greatest schools, and I do a lot of work down there.
I wondered where it would slip in.
No, hold on. No. And one of my best friends is also the coach of Calabar, so I'm also trying our best to help.
Thanks for the thanks.
Yeah. So where the young ladies are concerned, for me, it's just one simple word: no. No means no. Have a standard. My nieces, my goddaughters, and everything. Uncle God says no. Your name is not going to be on the bathroom wall. Just simple that. I keep it very simple. Be a lady. Just say no. So you say the more no the man to them get, they'll be forced to conform. Backed up with
a little how to treat us.
That is correct. So I may not have much reach, but I try my best to mentor, you know, use me as an example and try to teach them fundamental things in life.
And do you encourage your friends to do the same?
Funny enough, my friends, they spread our wide gamut of across society. Some are way too busy, but we try to ask them, listen,
no such thing.
It's time we give back. We have to leave a legacy. And for me, that's all part of it. Somebody helped me. I mean, Danny helped me, Doc helped me. So I'm just passing the baton. And that's basically it for me.
Okay.
I would endorse all you said in terms of us, any platform you have, any context you have, constantly, you know, spread these issues. Because it is not the conversation is not taking place sufficiently. Any chance you have to be a direct link with boys' lives, necessary. I've chosen to link for the past couple of years. I've been involved with the Kingston College Chapel Choir. Why? Because that's an incredible institution. Something as fine and beautiful as that, that our young men are being, you know, Douglas Forrest was the first person that played classical music to me and gave me an appreciation for the broader range of issues and so on. Maybe that's why I did a year of classical music when I was in college. So that's where I try to link directly. But any context I can interact with boys' lives. Also, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father. The song, every one of my children, my eldest daughter is 42. I played for every naming ceremony. I played Bob Marley's So Jasse. So Jasse. The words of that song has been my mantra as a father. The line says, "Not one of I seed shall sit on the sidewalk and beg your bread." Yeah? That was what I told myself from before I started having children. I go and make a.
That's where the pride. That's what I was talking about. That's the pride that I'm talking about.
But I guess what, if some don't have it, but still it can be induced. It can be induced. But for me, I set my own standard. I made it clear I am not going to be part of no woman's household until at least I can pay at least half the rent. I don't want a situation when a woman can say she didn't mind me and send me to go school and all them things there. My personal pride. Because as a man, I believe, first of all, I must hold up my half of the sky. And help others to do so too. So yes, that is there. So that I'm saying, but whatever way we can help, because we need to do so, because a lot of the boys out there and a lot of the women out there, and one message I tell to young men, before you execute your father based on the testimony of your mother, have a conversation with him. Because too many are being the narrative of the mother. That's one thing that saved my life. When I was in college, I had to do a project and they wanted to know your parents' age and so on. I don't ask your parents' age, but I had to do it. When I realized that when I was born, my mother was 27 and my father was 19. That answered a whole heap of questions. Why it never worked? Because they were going in totally different direction. Totally different. And so I said, my goodness, now I understand. Now I understand. Have a conversation with your father. Hear his story. And do not let just the limitations of the environment around you. I read widely as a child because my mother took me to Tom Redcam Library from I was 4. Every Saturday the program and leave me there the whole day. We live in one room of the library, you know. In my house, this room is covered with books. My meditation room is covered with books. My family room is covered with books because I grew up around books. Anything I want to know, I would just save it over the library and look it up. And I use persons from history, persons from fiction, persons from men to help shape the man that I have become. I take a piece from that one, a piece from that one, a piece from that one, and so on. So it can be done. But we just need to pass on. Let your light so shine before men so that they can learn.
Absolutely. Courtney.
All right. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite.
It's not a trick. One bite at a time. You know, oftentimes we hear that we do not have time, or we can't go here or we can't go there. So there is no way we can mentor a boy, but grow where you're planted. You see, you're working in an office and you have some interns that come in or some younger men that come in. And we sit by sometimes and look at how they have no manners, they don't open the door for people. And we as adults sit by and look at them and we talk about the negative things that they do. But you can't stay from far and change their behavior. You have to get involved to change that behavior. So now we have to share our own stories, become vulnerable. Tell them about your past. Because when you when you say to somebody you're not supposed to do that, what qualifies you to say that you're not to do that? But when I tell you that I was at the same place that you were at one point in time, and I used to behave the same way when I was a child, I thought like a child. I behaved like a child, but when I became a man, what did I do? I put away childish things. So do not think that you do not have a platform to share with people, with boys. Do not buy into the story that what you gone bad a morning can't come good a evening, because it can. But it begins with us. We have to decide now to get involved. Find the platforms that we have, use the platform, whether it's church, whether it's your office, whether it's in the inner city where you go, whether it's the boy at the stoplight. Find an opportunity to share with them, talk with them. One conversation can change somebody's mind. You know? One conversation can change a person and make them think differently. So use the platform that you have, grow where you're planted. We can do it.
You next, Danny?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's 6 of us who think manifest and define manhood. And if you duplicate this, there are probably tens of thousands of persons across Jamaica playing their part in trying to educate, trying to mentor, etc., etc. But when we step back and look, Jamaica has a problem that is not getting any better, but getting worse. So shouldn't discourage us from continuing to do making our effort and trying to even get others to join. But the fundamental issue has got to be, how do we, through our educational system, begin to address the cultural prejudices, stereotypes, and biases that have made us who we are. Because this generation, we have to take responsibility, Sandra. This generation has failed. We have failed. It may not be me, you, Leachcim, whoever, but we have failed. And unless we begin to address the problems by getting into the early socialization process in our schools, community, etc., we're going to be discussing this problem in another 10, 15, 20, or 30 years. The fundamental problem is, how do we deconstruct and decolonize an education system that has been the remnants of a colonial slave past that has made us into who we are. And we have to begin to address it. Call upon continue to do what we are doing, but we have to make some concerted effort to get our leaders to understand that we have to teach things like values and attitudes. The whole question of decency, respect for women, respect for ourselves, all of them things. Those things need to be in our curriculum. Right? So that, what we're doing now essentially has to find its way into the formal educational system to begin the process of
I have one to add to that. How about if a man does not take care of his children, you cannot be his friend? You think that would work?
No, I want to begin the solution to the problem by going to the root cause.
Okay,
I want to get to the root cause. I will mop up those things. We can mop up those things after. 1 or 2 is still going to get through. But I want to make a concerted effort to have an impact upon the psyche of the Jamaican people, men and women. Too much of us are going down the wrong path.
Hugh, your time.
Well, Sandra, I want to thank you for inviting me on this panel. It has been a wonderful experience. And my final words would be to my fellow panelists that we should seek out opportunities to not only mentor and guide where we're planted, as Courtney suggests, but we should also seek out opportunities to mentor and guide in organized structures. Because what we can do by ourselves can be multiplied, can become a catalyst, can be leveraged if we do it in a group. I have chosen to do it through my church and through my Kiwanis involvement, because Kiwanis is one of the largest sponsors of youth programs in our primary schools, in our high schools, and in our colleges. And if we can find like-minded persons in whatever structure there is, I can assure you that your contribution will be multiplied many times over, and we will be able to begin to bite down that elephant which we need to destroy.
But Hugh, how can we get good mentors to look sexy? Because what is happening is that the Vibes Cartel and the Beanie Mans and those, their image is a sexy image. But how can we get doing good to become sexy and to be the it thing? That is the problem that we're having now.
Yeah, but I think Courtney spoke about it. Courtney spoke about it in that what we need to do, we need to share our life experiences. In this panel, we have life experiences that cannot be replicated, that are invaluable. If we reach out to these young people, many of these young people, Leachcim will tell you, they are of a male influence.
The young people them such old people think that, man. Oh, girl them like me, a girl is. Oh.
Teach the Sandra, you, all of that is nice. Teach the children from them born what the values are, please. We can talk until the cows come home. Teach the children what the values are from in the womb, from in their mother's womb. Other than that, you're dealing with it at the back end.
Yeah, but we're here. We're here.
And I'm saying to you, continue to do what you're doing, but do not lose sight of the fact that we have to influence the political directorate, whomever, to get the education system changed.
All right. You're saying you're just finished, Hugh?
I finished. I finished.
Over to you now, Jeremiah. You're laughing at me.
Wait, so you're saying none of us are sexy? That's what you're trying to say?
No.
We can't be proud of for none of these young men.
Sexy. How can you make the message sexy? Because that's why it's being lost. You are not the same energy that are Vibes Cartel and all of these other DJs. How they get into the mindset.
I know. I'm acting silly. I know. I get you. But I think the most important thing, I have found that a lot of these young men want to tell their stories. They want to talk. And the thing is that we as mentors, we need to listen without judgment. We don't, when they talk to us, listen. And we don't always have to give them a solution all the time. Sometimes people just want to vent. And then that builds, and then share your stories, share your thoughts, share your mistakes, be open and transparent. And I found young people feel really comfortable talking to me because I'm just very clear and transparent about my life. But I also do a good job at listening, and listening without always having to have a corrective response. I think that is.
Don't. We didn't hear the last thing you said, Jeremiah. You froze. He's frozen. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
I froze.
Stop. Yes, stop.
I froze?
Yes.
Oh, I said,
you said listen without having a corrective.
I have a corrective response. Just learning to listen to people. And young people want to talk, let them talk to you.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, boy, I tell you, this could go on for about 5 more hours. But we don't have the time. So we have to, I have a simple solution. I think men love a boys club. They love a boys club. They love to hang out. That they love to spend quality time with each other. I am saying, if a man is not doing what he's supposed to do, you talk to him 1, 2, 3 times, he's out of the club because he's not following the guidelines. He is not your image. He's not following the image that you want for yourself.
You have not taught him to follow it, Sandra.
No,
you have not taught him to follow it.
A man does that in a group of men. Every man would pull up his bootstraps. How can you be afraid? You are saying that I'm a good father, I'm a this, I'm a that, and your best friend have 3 children and don't know how them eat? How is that even possible?
Sandra, you keep
constant reminder. We can't give up.
That even though you choose to have sex with him and so on, all of that, if women lock shop and raise their standards, every man has to bow.
I'm saying it's a collaborative effort. We alone.
You have more power over him than we do.
No, but that is only one side of his life.
No, that's his life.
No.
Life.
Start there.
No.
It's his life.
The boys' club is one of the biggest things for a man. That boys' club. He wants to belong to a crew.
Me not belong to a crew now.
Listen to the boys, Sandra. Listen to the boys.
No, when you were growing up, you had your crew at KC. So does Garth. So does Courtney. So does Hugh. So does Jeremiah. I'm sure because I see it. And I am saying, if you say to a man, brethren, you can't talk to your brethren and see my beat him white boy. That's not my business, no. But that's a whole other program. That's a whole other program. Because the man does not feel like it is his business to speak about what is happening at his friend's yard. They leave that out. And I am throwing out that challenge to the men on the panel and the men on the platform, that if you take responsibility for what is happening in your circle, there shall be a shift. I guarantee it. Because a man don't want him brethren and look down upon him. We miserable. That's what we are labeled as. If we talk about it, we miserable. So I am out that challenge. I'm throwing it.
But Sandra,
just saying.
Do you know that sometimes when, let's use the example that you use, a man is beating his wife. Sometimes the wife is not sure it, and his friends don't.
And many times his friends know. I'm just saying. But you do not participate. I'm just saying.
And the woman love him more because he beat her.
Oh God, that you know what? Let us end the program. Oh, not a road.
Because him beat men. And the makeup sex are the best thing.
We're going down the wrong road.
Well, because you don't want to accept your personal responsibility. Women have allowed men into their lives without manipulation. He makes no contribution to your life except penis.
I'm saying the men who are his friends have a responsibility to the village to assist. Because
Sandra, we need to teach him responsibility. We need to teach him responsibility. That's our responsibility from he's a child. Teach him responsibility.
Absolutely. But say
amen to that, Danny.
He missed it. Say he missed it, and he's now an adult. What is your responsibility?
We'll take charge of that responsibility. But let us correct the misstep in the first place. Don't make another generation that you would miss it.
I absolutely agree with that. So with that, we will say good night. People, it has been amazing. So much information, so much work to be done. So much work to be done by women and men. Next week, we continue the conversation. And we continue the conversation with Andre Blackwood, who is a part of the Bureau of Gender Affairs. He's a mentor, ambassador, former president for the Kingston and St. Andrew Youth Council within Ministry of Youth, associate fellow of the Royal Commonwealth Society, as well as director for the Voices. Now, he will carry with him some friends as well. I'm not sure who the panel will be for next week, but this is a conversation that I'm not willing to just drop. This has to, because I believe Jamaica will be the best place to be, live, work, and raise our families when the men step up. And we as women need to know what we need to require of our men and how we need to help to raise our boys. So thank you, Dr. Semaj, Garth Kitson, Jeremiah, Danny Roberts, Hugh Reid. Is anybody missing? 1, 2, 3. Somebody's missing. Who else was on the panel again?
Courtney.
Oh, and Courtney. Courtney seemed, hold on. Oh, Courtney seemed to have, no, he's not dropped off. Oh, yes, he dropped. Courtney, are you there? No.
Yes, I'm there. I'm
Right.
here, but I'm outside.
Right, you dropped off, sorry. And Courtney Whyte, gentlemen, thank you. You have been a powerhouse. A lot was said. I encourage you to go back and read all that was said, because a lot was said. And if something was directed to you, you can answer the person directly. Thank you so much for being a part of this panel. This is really, I don't want to say a sore topic, an important conversation to be had and to continue to be had. Let us see how we best can help Dr. Herbert Gale. I don't know why I keep on forgetting his name. I love him. Herbert Gale want to get some funding behind this challenge so that we can cauterize crime, cauterize abuse, female abuse. We need to go to the source. What's causing all of this? So have a good night. Thank you so much. Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sandra.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Share with your friends. Folks, share with your friends. Like and share. See you next week. Same time, same place, 8 p.m. next week.
Bye-bye.